Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the February News Charter School Board of Directors meeting. It's good to see everyone. I would like to officially call this meeting to order. This time I'll read our ethics statement and reminder. Board members are reminded that it is our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of the board. Does any member of the board currently in attendance know of any conflict of interest or any appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before us at this board meeting? If so, please state them for the record. If during the course of the meeting you become aware of an actual or apparent conflict of interest, please bring the matter to the attention of the chair. It will then be your duty to abstain from participating in discussion on the matter and from voting on the matter. Thank you. Because we have some late arrivals, we may be jumping around our agenda a little bit. Start off with our public comment, and I believe we had a speaker. Okay, Michelle Newham. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it.
That's fine, it's Michelle Newham.
Newham, yes. Would you like to come to the front? Please be reminded we have a 3-minute public comment per person. Thank you.
Hi. I just wanted to make this real quick. I made some notes and I kind of skipped around. My name is Michelle Newham. My son Hamza Newham started at the school at the beginning of the freshman year. He did not have a good experience at the school. I was very disappointed and everything that we experienced. My son came from a private school, and after kind of crossing over the tracks from a private to a public school, I didn't like what I saw, and I could see why things happen in schools because it's not always the students' fault. It can also be the staff and the teachers as well too. My son had goals coming at the school. He made excellent grades. And when he came, he had no interest in going to school anymore. He didn't want to go to college. And that became a big factor with me. Not having any goals because of the school. My son has disabilities. So when applied for him back in like June. I spoke with the counselor, and things were not told to me at the time when we filled out the application about to get things rolling, to get the IEP and everything rolling, and we weren't able to get in until November. Time kept lingering on and on and on, so that was a big problem I had with the school. So we ended up not getting IEP, and it was kind of against what the doctor's discretion was, is he has autism and he should have gotten the IEP. There were just a lot of things that we weren't happy with. You know, when my son has a goal, and because of the school, a lot of anger issues, a lot of stress played a big part, and I ended up taking him to his psychologist. The school wasn't worth it anymore. You know, it was just it was a horrible experience. My son was going backwards, and I had to get him on the right track. And so I did remove him from the school, and he's homeschooling right now until he goes back to his school that he went to beforehand. I think a lot of it was the counselor's fault. I don't think that the counselors did their job professionally. I ran around in circles with the school. I sent emails that were they didn't reply back to a lot of my emails. I kept asking the same questions. I was going around in circles. He was going around in circles. There were a lot of things that was told to me, what they were going to do. They were not honest with me. There were a lot of things that the teachers do provoke and instigate as well too. The grading, a lot of his grades was not correct. I would meet with the teachers a few times. I'm the one that was wanting to meet halfway. I begged them to meet me halfway. Most of the teachers didn't meet me halfway. And I shouldn't have to keep running in the circles. I shouldn't have to beg day in and day out to get answers, questions about the grades, other things, assignments in the class. They weren't grading the grades right. I would go back and ask questions and they could never answer them correctly. And then I had one teacher that told me, you know, I don't have to tell you how I grade. I grade how I want to. No, if it's a curriculum, it is based on how many points in a test. Let's see. And during this whole experience, my son was bullied a lot here from the teachers, and bullying is a form of abuse. I don't think that the school is equipped very well to deal with children with disabilities. My son was suspended one day because of an opinion that he had. There were 2 emails my son sent. They were a form of opinions. They weren't disrespectful. I did take it to his doctor. I did take it to the psychologist, and they said it was a form of opinion and a cry out for help. My son wanted help. He begged to get help in the afternoons. Most of the time the teachers did not stay in the afternoons to help him.
15 seconds.
The school was no encouragement or positive. I never saw kids smile here. Everything that was sent to me, email, or the conversations I had with the teachers, it was just no encouragement, no positive here at all. I just think that it... Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Noam, for, and I'm sorry, I know I'm pronouncing your name wrong, for sharing your perspective.
Spell that last name, please.
Nouarm. A-I-N. That's why I keep pronouncing it incorrectly. Nouam. Okay. Thank you for sharing your perspective with the board.
And I wasn't trying to yell at you. I didn't know if the mic was on. So.
We will move now to the Booster Club report. I believe Mr. Lynch. Yes. And we passed out your handout. Yes, thank you.
If y'all haven't discovered yet this year, I'm not a public speaker, so we'll get that out of the way. Some of this stuff on the budget, I would have to nail down exactly what it is. We have moved off of manually entering spreadsheets and gone to a QuickBooks. And sometimes QuickBooks logs it in under a category that we have no idea what the category is. Fortunately, it's in income, it's not in expenses, so as long as it's in income, I'm not too really worried about it. We have the money. As you can see, our biggest income comes out of the concessions, and that includes the lunch program. That's not just concessions, it's sold at the game. And the fundraising income is probably next in line, along with the spiritware income. Those are our revenue generators. The total cost of goods sold, I was looking earlier today, and I'm thinking the $15,000 is the stipends we pay the coaches as a labor cost for all the different sports. But the total cost of the goods sold were $14,729.50, which left us with a gross profit of $61,316.31. And the expenditures are pretty much self-explanatory. There might be a question as far as the $1,674 in office supplies, but since we did switch over to QuickBooks, the ancient laptop we had would not run the program, and so we had to purchase a new laptop in order to get on that system. That's why that cost is a little higher than what you would think it would mostly be. The total expenditures we had are $54,976, which left us a operating revenue of $6,340 as of January the 1st. The January and February reports have not been reconciled yet. I'll have it ready by the next meeting if we need it. But right now on hand, give or take, because it changes daily, we have around $20,000 in our account. And I'll answer any questions if anybody has any.
First of all, Ms. Lynch, I certainly do appreciate your volunteering to do something that's pretty much a part-time job, so we certainly do appreciate that, because I know how much time. My question is under concessions, or you touched on it on the ballpark. Out of the 34,000 percentage-wise is about for lunchroom. What is, just out of curiosity, is it 75%?
Lunchroom would probably be closer to around 80%.
Around 80%?
Yeah.
Okay.
On a yearly basis, yeah.
Right.
This is like 7 months, but I'd say 75 to 80%.
Right. How are we running on volunteers? I know that I watch social media a lot, and sometimes there's a call to arms that we need somebody to show up. And
So far, if I've been in a bind, I've always had somebody step up and take the reins if I needed them to. We've even get help out of school. I mean,
right.
Coach Brown, she comes in and helps. Coach Hines, she comes in and helps. We get it done. I would like more volunteers, but we get by.
Well, I just don't want something to happen to you and fall off the face of the earth, and then we figure out how do we. I'd like for us to figure out how we can do that better, in the sense of our lunch program. I mean, not necessarily as it equates to funding, but just two angles. I just wanted a curiosity about that.
It's just opinion, but we've got 975 odd students in the school, and most of them probably have 2 parents or 2 guardians, and we have maybe 6 volunteers weekly that do this lunch program.
Yeah.
I agree with you. If every family just took one day, we'd have the entire year covered.
I agree,
And
it would be a major
I
help.
don't know how we can do that. So, yeah.
The lunch program is not only to fund the athletic department, but it's to give the kids a hot, nutritious meal every day. And, if be it the school that would do it, or be it the Booster Club that would do it, it's still a benefit to the parents for us to have this program.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly.
There's some way we need to get that across to them. Yeah.
Got a question.
Regarding, under expenditures, what is cost of games?
Cost of games would be the revenue, or not the revenue, the cost of games would be paying the officials and the security that goes along with that. We have to pay the referees for all the home games. We have to pay security for every high school home game basketball.
All right, so so your cost of labor is not officials, your cost of labor you think is coaches.
Yeah, I believe that would be the stipends we pay the coaches.
Okay.
We generally cover the cost of games out of the gate fund.
Mhm.
It generally pays for it, and what we make in the concession stand generally covers the security for each game.
Okay.
So it's kind of a break-even situation on that. Like I said, I'll be glad to get any details that you guys need. My treasurer's not available tonight, but I can get her. And anything you want to know, I can find for you.
Yeah,
For my knowledge, thank you.
Yeah, I did talk to Richard about, as part of the resource development planning for next year, is including them in the committee, either him or, I think the treasurer's Carolyn?
Carla Priest.
Just so we can look at the aggregate picture of how much we're raising at the school, because I think it's actually a lot more than we realize when you add in the full loading budget, Booster Club, as well as the reverse rifle and all the other various things we do. So we're looking at it a little more holistically from a planning perspective for next year. On the stipend side, do you have a chance to know, do you pay that to a coach and an assistant coach for each sport?
It's paid to a coach for each sport, and he pays out for the assistant.
Okay. Do you by chance know how much that is per sport?
I think we went at $700 this year. For a
Well,
coach.
we can check. Well, I was checking, Carl. I was just curious.
But I think that's what it is.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for all you do, because I know it's sometimes to be a thankless job.
Anybody else?
Thank you so much for the information.
Thank you.
Going to cycle back to approval for the agenda. Have a moment to review tonight's agenda.
I make a motion that we approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion passed. Okay. And then we will approve the January minutes.
I make a motion to approve the January minutes.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion passed. Okay, so now we will have Kevin give our SGA report. Good to see you.
As you may recall, my mentioning of it in last month's meeting, the SGA, along with a few other selected students, organized a retreat for outstanding individuals who we believe exemplified the leadership characteristics we were looking for in the nominations by their teachers. Thankfully, we had a great group of students that were very responsive to our activities. It was very fun. We called this retreat the News Charter School Task Leadership Retreat for Fort Caswell. Tasks standing for talents, athletics, skills, and knowledge, the kind of areas we wanted to touch on every activity we did. And it worked wonderfully. I'm very, very proud to say that the event went very well, and our students left happy, enthusiastic about the experience, and the lessons that they learned they can take on to other endeavors that they have in the future. With the success, we plan to make this event an annual one, and are looking forward to analyze this experience that we had and make next year's even better. So multiple students have actually expressed their interest in coming back, so we're very excited. I was very happy with the performance of our leaders who organized the event, and just how smoothly everything ran. We only had a couple little difficulties, but we'll smooth those out in our upcoming years, and they're negligible. So it was very exciting. Multiple students have also finished up the final stages of preparation for our prom coming this March 9th at the farm, and we're looking forward to that as well. Additionally, another student, Lexi Flack, is leading the student organization of our second school blood drive this March 16th. She would be here to tell the board more about this herself, but had another obligation today helping her mother with Celebrate Recovery, which is an initiative through her church to reach out to those in the community who are struggling and may need extra support. So we're very proud to have her leading the team. Last I know, we're about halfway towards our goal of around 60 donors. We have been posting information about this on our own personal social media, and also reaching out to local venues such as the GNC Health and Nutrition Shop here nearby. There is also a Girl Scout troop there, so we passed out the information to them. And we sent some flyers out to the Walmart Food Line, also here at Smithfield, to present their employees to see if we can draw in some local support for this wonderful charity. Thank you to another junior, Jackson Hester, for assisting me in speaking to those managers and getting that information out. Ms. Flame has also been so helpful in putting me in contact with Mr. Lamb from the Joker Report paper, and is putting the information in their events calendar, both on the online and the radio platforms, to spread the message. So we have those things coming up, and we're looking forward to ongoing success.
An excellent job, as always, presenting. Our director's report.
I just had it up, but we started tonight with our first 5:30 celebrations and recognitions report. We were able to recognize 12 separate students for teamwork, responsibility, and creativity. It was a very nice event, and several parents have stayed after to take some photos, and one or two board members were around to be able to engage in dialogue. So we think it's going to be a successful platform for honoring our students in this way.
Can I stop? Amanda, can you make sure that goes out as a reminder? Because I did not have that on mine. I got the regular board minute.
It was in that.
Maybe it's a scheduled appointment?
Yeah,
Like
scheduled
a
appointment. Yeah,
invitation,
yeah.
calendar
It's a
invitation.
separate thing. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, not at all. We also had the opportunity to recognize Lacey Jones for getting her WRL Extra Effort Award earlier this month, or in January. And of course, I do want to take a moment and recognize Coach Browning for all that she did for hosting our first ever Carolina 1A basketball tournament or conference tournament here on campus. There were doubters that thought we wouldn't be able to hold all of the athletes and their guests, but we did a fantastic job, hosted around 640 visitors across the 3-day tournament. And of course, our girls took home the trophy. So they not only were regular season champs, but conference champs as well. That did give them a bid into the state playoffs, and that didn't turn out the way we had hoped, but we're very, very pleased with their performance this year and just really excited about where it's going to take our program next year. But it was without a hitch. We had several people commenting on how clean the gym was and how spacious it was and how well laid out it was. So we put our best foot forward. Parking, of course, is creative, but we had lots of signs. If you came on any of the nights, we did a really good job of putting some signage out to let everybody know how to find extra parking on campus and then how to find their way back to the gym. The construction project, of course, puts a little interesting spin on the walking patterns. But it was a great hosted tournament. It did keep us here till 10, 11 o'clock, those 3 nights, but just well done, good job well done. If you see Coach Browning or anyone in the basketball program, please let them know how much you appreciate their efforts. In fact, we were able to hold hospitality in this facility, so the refs and the coaches could come and get a little snack in between games and show off our facility a little bit too. And so that was an added bonus and talk with them. Other things I want to let you know about is, as far as staffing goes, we are fully staffed at this point. As far as the interview process for the intermediate academy leader and senior academy counselor positions, we are underway with our intermediate academy leader interviews, and we hope to have the first round of interviews completed this week and take that to the next step. For the senior academy counselor position, we have not received the types of applications that we were hoping for, and so we're continuing to broaden our search. In fact, Dr. Silver and I and Mr. Smith and I and Ms. Van Hoy and I are all taking our turns going together at some career fairs that are specific to education over the next several weeks. We've already hit a couple in the Fayetteville area and Raleigh area. We're heading to Greenville tomorrow, and then we'll head down to Wilmington, and then we're looking at other opportunities for low-cost fairs. Most of them do require a bit of a registration fee for us to set up a table, but it's been great to connect. And we did have our first ever applicant that approached us knowing exactly what charters are about and came to us on purpose because she wanted to talk to someone in a charter environment because that's where she wanted to teach. And she told us in about 30 seconds what it means to be charter. And so finally our graduates are starting to understand our role in education and choice in education. So that was really exciting. That was very exciting. Some business updates for you. Our custodial contract is about 3/4 of a way into its first year, and so we had a third quarter meeting. I've talked with the facilities committee about this a little bit. We're starting to look at the gym as it's kind of its own entity. So as we look at business proposals for future years, we might be looking at custodial services for that space a little separately from the general contract for the school, just because of the way it's used and how difficult it is to clean it during the normal cleaning schedule, because they're here from 5 to 10 cleaning and we're still in it and still using it, and it makes it very, very difficult to keep it at the level we need to keep it at. But we have learned some new tips and tricks for our floor, and we've actually been able to refurbish it back up to a higher level of conditioning, and so we're actually extending the life of our floor as we speak by using some new processes. So just a couple of facilities things there. As far as business goes, I've mentioned to our finance committee, and we have identified resources for it. We're going to be onboarding a new communications program or tool. It's an online web-based platform that's going to give us more ways to communicate with our parents. We'll actually be able to use robotic phone call type systems and let parents opt into a text messaging, email, how do you want to get your information. We're looking to onboard that before the end of this year, just so we can start piloting some of the pieces and get some feedback from parents on what works well and doesn't, so that by next year we're ready to use it all year long to increase our ability to access our parents. We hear regularly communication is one of our biggest challenges, and we're trying to really respond to that, and as well as making sure that it's an efficient system that can actually link to our PowerSchool data sources, so that as a parent goes in and updates their phone number, we already have it. As they go in and update their email address, we already have it. And then that way they can self-manage their notifications a little bit easier. So we're hopeful that that will increase parents in knowing what's happening on campus and being able to engage in all of the sessions that we host, as well as giving them an opportunity to give us feedback on what works and what doesn't work. I want to talk to you a little bit about where we are with enrollment. March 15th will happen before we meet again, and that is, of course, our annual enrollment lottery date. Applications went out on February 1st and were posted online, as well as we had some volunteers carry a handful of them over to some of our local preschools, and we've advertised with WTSB and the JOCO Report, the News and Observer, and I'm looking to Amanda, and Johnston Now. We're also looking at whether or not we want to boost our ad on Facebook right now. Mr. Williams and I are looking at the costs associated with that. We do have a business page where we could boost the ad if we need to. But as far as numbers go, we're actually looking really, really good. At this point, we already have today, and we still have about 2 weeks to go, we already have 267 applications in. most of which, of course, are kindergarten. We have 64 applications for those. And then we range anywhere from 4 to 35 across all the other grade levels, all the way up to 12th grade. So we still have interest across all grade levels, families trying to get in. We have 870 students that have already checked the box saying that they plan to come back next year. We have 40 kindergarten siblings coming in next year, coming in with that sibling priority. And then we have a mixture of about 25 other students across the different grade levels coming in as siblings as well. What's great about being news charter and being able to use the sibling rule is that if someone gets in, let's say in 3rd grade, because that's where the seat opens, then the following year, their siblings, whichever grade they're in, would have that extra priority to try to get those open seats first so we can keep the whole family together. So we're really targeting very well to probably have somewhere around 974 students on the books by the time we finish lottery. And then we'll kind of let the dust settle for a minute and see what happens if anybody moves away over the summer, and then use our wait lists for any remaining seats.
How many seats do we have in kindergarten generally, just anyway?
72
So you're saying 40 are already
filled with siblings, and then we have roughly 32 open seats for new families.
Returns doesn't include siblings in kindergarten, correct?
Sorry?
Your number for returns does not include.
Correct. The 870 means there's a 0 in the kindergarten box. Right.
Okay, so 870 returns plus 40 siblings.
Is 910, and then you add in about 25 of the other siblings across the other grades that we'll try to work in before we start pulling from the wait list. And we do currently have a few openings going into 10th grade just because it is a smaller 9th grade class. We have, even with everybody staying on, we still have a little extra room where we could take on some new 10th graders. And historically we've had that. But that should slowly start to end as our 8th grade class is one of our larger classes. And ideally we should start to see our high school staying at that full complement moving forward.
So what do we set our ADM for? What do we submit it?
We submitted it much higher. We submitted it at the full, at, oh gosh, what was it?
It was north of 940 though, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
This year we set it at 944. I want to say I set it at 975 this year as the max, knowing that we'll probably hit closer to 940 when all the pieces fall into place.
How does it work if you have multiple kids and say a kindergarten student and a 3rd grade student, and the 3rd grade gets into the lottery? Does that give that sibling?
In the first year that a family applies, each student is looked at their own self based on the grade levels that they're applying for. So it's possible that just the 3rd grader could get in and the kindergartner didn't and maybe got waitlisted, or the reverse. And that doesn't give them any priority in that year. So they stay where they are in the wait list, wherever they were to begin with, and we just keep moving forward. In a future school year, once the student has had that enrollment for a year, then they would have the priority. The only exception to that rule, of course, is twins. If they are twins or triplets or multiples, they're considered a one unit, and so they either all come in or they all stay on the wait list. They wouldn't be skipped. So if, let's say, for example, we only had one open seat and it was a family of triplets, they'd be next for us to call as we ended up with 3 seats, but we would kind of have to hold that vacancy until we had 3 open seats. But we wouldn't be allowed to dip down to, let's say, the 4th person on the wait list to take the empty seat. We would continue to wait until we can seat that family first. Rarely does it come to that, but, and that's all based on legislation.
Has the sibling number gone up? I mean, I'm just wondering, is there going to be a point where we kind of cycle out and not have any spots?
I think the kindergarten enrollment seems to have hit its stride. I think last year we had 45 or so that were siblings, and so this year we have 40. So I think we're going to always, depending on
Not full, but
the cycle of birth rates of those years, it's probably going to cycle where there's always between 35 and 45 siblings filling those seats. And remember, because we're K-12, that extends that sibling life even longer than in a, let's say, K-4 or K-5 setting.
that's why I'm wondering, because now we have another school. So if you get them in sibling, it almost puts you and your whole family, all your kids in for the life of that school.
Yes.
So
In fact, there's even, I believe, a legislative priority that allows us, if, let's say, someone was an alum and had a sibling, they could have that priority as well. The likelihood of that impacting our population is very slim because that's about a 13, 14-year spread.
but how many on average apply for kindergarten? You already say 84.
As of right now, we have 64 applications in addition to the 40 siblings that are, and that's only as of today. And we still have through March 14th to accept applications. If anyone's listening, all applications must be in by noon on March 14th.
I mean, at some point,
No, it's great, but if then if they go somewhere else, that locks them probably into the other school because they'll get the similar benefits and most likely would stay along with their siblings and everything, so.
At some point, we need to, I don't know if it's part of the bylaws or whether, but we do need to go back and look at the changes in legislation regarding enrollment. And like alumni, I was reading the other day, I think there may be a couple of other scenarios that we should probably bring back before the board for just ratifying against the way we do it today.
That's gonna be an enrollment policy issue and would have to be referred to whatever committee came up with enrollment policy.
We should review it.
Right now, the alumni is not in our enrollment policy, so they would not get preference. So they may be allowed to be preferenced by statute, they do not get preference under our policy.
There are a couple other things that have been enacted and changed and loosened up in the last legislative year that we could look at too.
So you think we're just basically still on par with the number of applications? Around?
Yes, in fact, I've seen an increase in the upper grades in high school, which is interesting, but I see 18 applications for ninth grade, 15 applications for 8th grade, and those are off years, to 8th grade in particular.
Elementary.
Yeah, elementary, we're still seeing anywhere from 10 to 35 applications per grade level that are not siblings or
What
staff.
I'm saying is it pretty much basically what I'm saying is you have a new school that's recruiting, so it has that hit us. And we need to keep that in mind because now we're not the only game in town, so
How many did you say? Could we tell until after the lottery? Because if they're not in a charter school, they're in both lotteries.
Well, what I'm saying is that if we see a reduction in our number of applications this year, we're pretty much on point. They are recruiting, because my girlfriend, she's like, I don't even know how they got my text number, but they're sending these texts about.
They're definitely aggressively
But yes, so I'm just saying, if we're seeing a sharp decline, or we may need to do other things, especially for
I
elementary.
don't think you'll see it any impacts. I think Jimmy's right, they're gonna play both sides this year.
Yes.
The new school will.
Yeah, still unknown.
They'll have more openings than we will.
Right.
They're also targeting not just Johnson County, they're targeting Wake County. They have billboards up in Wake County.
Right.
But
But the appeal for people, which was the discussion amongst this little group, was that's on my way to work. I don't have to, be here and come back down here. I can rock them on my way to work and get on the highway. So we just have to keep that in mind because we may need to change up our strategy or.
At this time, if I were to compare to last year's number, we're about halfway to where we were for, let's say, 6th, 7th grade, where last year we probably had 40 or so students applying for those grade levels. We're sitting on maybe 18 to 22. We also know that we had a little bit of an impact with the opening, I believe it was called Swift Creek Middle within Johnson County. That impacted us a little bit. I think we lost about 3 or 4 students when that school opened up last year.
Which
I think, is it called Swift Creek or?
Okay. And what is the innovative school? What is that represents out here? Is that middle school?
It is middle school, yeah.
yeah,
Oh, some innovative, but it's a middle school.
It is. It's a STEM type focused program that's project-based learning.
And then
That's how
Clayton
it's
has
set.
their new school within a school, which is flexible. They can basically take it online, but they're still in Clayton High School, so they can do sports and. So just-
And all of that is a complement to what we have done here.
Yeah, no,
created-
I'm just saying that surveying the landscape
Yes.
is important.
Yes.
You can't just keep going on like.
It's my understanding that because it is opening in the fall, the new charter school had to run its lottery already in order to get some data points to DPI. They have filled their seats and they have a wait list. They actually were able to fill their seats on their first run based on what I've been told from the new principal. So at this point, whoever's on their wait list.
Product matters.
Exactly.
Just out of curiosity, is there a need to partner with them for any reason?
I've already established a relationship with the principal in terms of just a professional relationship. So we've had lunch together and engaged in dialogue, and we're planning to support charter together in the community. Because ideally, we're truly targeting different audiences.
Well, they're for-profit schools, they have, in the sense that what their mission is to make money.
you know, best practices is one thing, but honestly, I don't want to get too close to that. I don't particularly care for that model, but that's neither here nor there.
But I think the relationship is important. It's always to establish a
Yes.
collegial relationship.
Absolutely. So again, public service announcement, all applications must be in by noon on March 14th. So if you need to hand deliver it, it has to have a noon time and date stamp. Just as a reminder, if we receive anything past noon in the mail, as a fax, as an email, as a personal delivery, it gets time and date stamped, and then once the lottery is run, they'll be placed on the wait list at the bottom in the order that they were received. That also means that if someone moves to the community over the summer, they are able to come fill out an application for us, and we just continue to put them in the wait list in the order in which they're received at that point. At this point in the school year, we are not pulling from the wait list for this active school year. We can't do that and run a lottery at the same time. It doesn't work. We're shifting over into next year. As far as other reports, I think we'll talk about the compensation plan in old business. The calendar we'll talk about in new business. And then in just a moment, I'm going to turn the mic over to Dr. Silver to give you a report on where we are with PLUS and our academic works. But I did want to draw your attention to 2 additional items that were left at your table that did not make it into the packet because I accidentally labeled them March when I gave them to the team to include. You've not officially received a copy of the North Carolina School Report Card for News Charter for the 2016-17 school year, and I just wanted to make sure you had a copy on hand. It is already posted to our website in our accountability section as per legislation and best practice. As a reminder, we did receive a B rating, but we were concerned because the number of the B was at the low end of the scale. And so that's part of why some of our efforts have been to make sure that proficiency is a target. In addition, we have noticed a steady change in the growth category. As a reminder, growth is through the computer modeling that's done. There's something called an EVOS predictor score that says if a student at this level comes into your room and you work with them at a regular pace, they should be able to perform at X level by the end of the year. If they achieve that score, that would be considered meeting growth. If they exceed that, so let's say the computer model predicts that they'd be a 3 and they end up becoming a 4, and that would be considered exceeding growth. If the computer model predicted that they'd be a 5 and they score a 4, then that would be not meeting the growth. As a school last year, overall, we did not meet growth. And so that was very concerning to us and a red flag for us and another impetus for some of the work that we're doing with our vertical alignment and with all the other academic programs. So I just want to be honest about that. Those are concerning numbers for us because they're going in the wrong direction. We've already had some positive success in the fall semester with EOCs that were administered to show that some of the work we've done has already had an initial impact. And I'll let Dr. Silva talk to you about that more. The other thing I wanted to share with you is just our official performance framework update from the Office of Charter Schools as part of their oversight and compliance requirements. They put us through a little bit of a mini audit every year and just make sure that we're compliant in all the areas. We are compliant in all areas, and they were even able to update the compliance and the financial reporting as we received our removal from the warning status in the fall, and we're back on normal status for financial purposes as well.
One clarification on that, is that when I looked at this school performance report, remind me from last year, this academic data is for last academic year or actually the year before?
When they're doing the 17 performance framework, they're using 16-17 data where they can. There are some federal elements that they have to use 15-16 data for, like Title I, but the majority of it, they try to use the most current as they possibly can.
So this would have been representative of the academic results from last year's academic year?
It's this report card you have in hand, because you'll see that the B rating for the reading performance and the C rating for the math performance match
Was
our
last year.
16-17 results.
Thank you.
So at this time, it was part of the academic report is where we're at, so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Silver. I believe she's got a PowerPoint for you, and we emailed it to you ahead of time, so it is in your, but we did not print a copy. If you'd like a printed copy, let us know, and we'll make sure we get you one before you leave tonight.
So one last question. Do you know on the performance framework release on page 3 of 4 for the growth, and it says minus 3.7, is that 3.7% decrease?
It's not a percentage, it's the scaling score that they do, but it means that we're going in the wrong direction, that we,
Is it on a
Students
scale of 1 to
slid.
10, or is it a?
Dr. Silver.
I'm just trying to figure out order of magnitude when it says
Right.
negative 3.7, is that minor, mild, severe? I mean, I know it's going in the wrong direction clearly, but I'm just trying to figure out order of magnitude. Page 3 of 4 on the performance framework release.
I don't have three.
I believe some of us are missing pages 2 and 3. Does that sound accurate?
It's the second page on the back.
I'm missing two.
Oh, some of them only have 2 sheets.
The copier failed us.
Ronnie, which meeting are you looking at? This one.
This one.
Well, so we will research that and get back to you.
That's one.
Yeah,
Hold
I
up
got
the meeting
one
for
to
that.
4 to 4 to 4, so I don't have 2 to 3.
I mean, it's measure D2, the charter school matter exceeded expected growth, status not met, data, the daily column is minus 3.7. I'm just trying to understand what that means.
Good evening. So we're going to start with some celebrations. So we've heard about our athletic champions. So we're going to start off with our academic champions. First up, we've got James Evans. James Evans was one of the 12 students that we had to compete at the regional science and technology and engineering fair. What makes James so special is James is the first News Charter School student to place at the regional level. He won first place in the technology section for his project, which was on animation optimization. Also, James is the first to be nominated for an award there. In addition to placing first place, James received a nomination for the Broadcom Masters competition. So James will be moving on to the state level science fair next month. So let's wish him well and let's try to support him. Our next academic champion is John LePage. And he's pictured with Mr. Brad Ward, who served as his coach for the spelling bee. John LePage went on to compete in the middle school county spelling bee. He was able to defeat 10 out of the 16 participants, and he made it to round 7. So certainly we had a better showing than what we've had in previous years, so we are proud of him. Our third academic champion is one of our staff members. Ms. Joyner, we just learned that she was awarded the Flank mini grant for her Spanish, for elementary Spanish classes. The title of her grant was The 7 Continents and the Hispanic World. So we are super duper proud of her, and we can't wait to see what she's going to be doing with this grant money. So continuing on with our academic champions, we definitely want to shout out our robotics teams. They've had some excellent showings. If you have never been to one of their events, I encourage you to do so. It is amazing how articulate our students are. They're explaining their processes and procedures, not only to the judges, but they have to basically sell their product to other teams to get those teams to invite them to have a partnership. It's amazing to watch. Team NUSA, they actually ranked 12 out of 24, and they were actually selected by another team to partner with them in the playoffs. So they'll be advancing. 3 items coming up for them. They're going to have the first robotics showcase right across the street on Saturday, actually. So please, let's go out and support them. Also, our school will be hosting our first robotics showcase on March 21st. And also, they'll all be participating at the Campbell University Expo, which will be April 7th. So we want to wish them well. For our National Honor Societies, huge shout out to Mr. Kaiser and all that he has done with the elementary level. It is unheard of across the state to have 80 members in your elementary honor society. That is a huge accomplishment. That's something that you don't see often. So definitely proud of them. Our junior honor society, they went on a trip today. They have a college focus for this month, so they actually toured UNC Chapel Hill and they toured High Point University today. Our high school honor society, their focus is on co-hosting the blood drive that Kevin talked about earlier today. So let's try to support all of their events. Their blood drive is going to be on March 16th if you can come out and support them. AMC. For those of you that aren't aware of what the AMC is, we just had the AMC 8. What the AMC 8 is, it is a 25-question, 40-minute exam, which is designed to foster how to develop problem-solving skills. So we had our 3 top students that scored were Skylar Dunn, Megan Bruner, and Luke Heifel. Unfortunately, no one will be advancing this time to the next level for the AMC 8, but we did show growth in the participation and the scoring. So we're on our way. We think next year we're going to get it. So for AMC 10 and 12, we do have 6 students that will be advancing to the regional level. They will compete at Wake Tech on March 22nd. Let's try to support them as well. For AMC 10, we had 14 participants, and for AMC 12, we had 3. So we're definitely growing this program from what it has been in the past. We're gaining momentum. The scores for the exam that they recently took, we'll get those back in March, and I'll share those with you as well. Okay, so as Ms. Pulliam started the ball rolling with discussing our performances that we've had in the past, our trend and last year's data, we're going to get it started with the end of course results for grades 9 through 12. And these are the high school level courses. So we're going to start with NC Math 1. So our data with Math 1, we did fall from the previous year, and you can see our trend in the right-hand box. So in 2015-16, we were sitting at 50%, and then we showed some growth in the next year, and then last year we failed. So what are we doing to fix this problem? In addition to identifying that we needed calculator updates, we have sent home at-home resources for the parents so that they know what their child can work on at home. We have boosted our parent involvement with just keeping the parents in the know more via phone calls, emails. We're sending letters home so that parents can get the information 3 different ways. Also, as far as instruction goes, we're moving into small group instruction more so for this particular course. We're also starting work on their word problems and building that stamina. We started that a month earlier than what we started last semester. So we're waiting to see if that will pay off in the long run, which we think it will.
So just so I understand, so does that mean, am I reading this chart right? For this year, for the fall, we had a 27.78% of 4 or 5 proficiency, right?
No, let me explain those columns. So the left-hand column represents college and career ready. The state of North Carolina deems college and career ready with scoring a proficiency level of 4 or 5. Okay? Now, the right-hand column talks about meeting grade level standards. Okay? That is just achieving proficiency. So those are proficiency levels of 3, 4, and 5.
And then when we say Math 1, we have a distribution of students in Math 1 that are not 9th graders, correct?
Correct. This reflects the 9th graders that took it in the fall. Our 8th grade Math 1, which is what I think you're speaking to, they will test this spring.
So what test was given in the fall?
In the fall, the end
For
of
these scores?
The end of course, EOC.
So the end of course test was given at the beginning of the year as like a benchmark?
No, ma'am. High school, their courses change each semester. So the high school students that were enrolled in Math 1 in the fall, they took their EOC in December. We start a new semester in January, so new students in high school will be taking Math 1 now. This is a completely different set of students. So they will take their test during the spring.
They do Math 1 twice a year.
Yes.
But there were no
Yes.
8th graders in Math 1 in the fall. They do it in the spring.
The 8th graders will test in the spring, and that's another reason why we're confident that that 38.89 will come up.
And traditionally, I mean, Math 1 is typically targeted at 9th grade, right?
Correct.
But some schools teach it as early as 7th grade.
Correct. So that 38.89%, that does not reflect our final. We still have another batch of students that are taking it, another batch of 9th graders that are taking it, and we have another batch of 8th graders that are taking it as well that will test this spring to pull that number up.
And for the students who were in the course that didn't perform well, we've already identified what we need to do to support them either in this semester or next school year as well. And we've made some specific changes in the math department to address some of these concerns as well so that we can solve this problem and the students don't get left behind.
So not all 9th graders took the test in the fall?
Correct.
Okay.
So what happens, where is the student who did not do well in Math 1? Are they in Math 1 again?
So the students that didn't perform well on the Math 1 exam for the first semester were either rescheduled into it this semester or have a very specific plan to either stretch it out, trying to figure out, because we have two different versions of Math 1 that we've offered over the last couple of years. One is single semester and one is year long. And so some of the students that were targeted for single semester in the fall that didn't perform well probably transitioned into the year-long class because they've had the portion and they can pick up and move on and move forward with the new instruction to fill in any holes. But yes, we're immediately...
Determines whether they're in a year-long or single semester.
That was a meeting that takes place with myself, the counselors, and the principal.
For this particular cohort of students, but prior to this, it would be based on teacher recommendation and parent information, as well as what the student's college plan is. So it's all the normal registration process.
So the 38% of the 9th graders, is that whether they're in the single or the double, they just still took the exam in December?
No, this is just the group that were in a block version of Math 1 in the fall and were required to take the exam at the end of the course because it termed in December. So we have two things we have to look at. One, were the students not giving appropriate instruction? We're addressing that piece. Or were the students misidentified and put into an accelerated course when they needed to be in a not so accelerated course? And so if that strategy was wrong in the registration period, we need to make those adjustments going into next year's registration.
And so you're thinking it's going to go up because you'll have people basically repeating, and then you'll have the group that was in the year-long one.
And then there's another group of students that were scheduled for a single block that are taking it as a spring course instead of a fall course,
Personnel change.
as well as 8th grade.
As Rodney's point, 9th grade is the typical start point for Math 1. So even though your numbers may go up with whatever few 8th graders, I mean, your block.
We don't want to downplay that. Is not.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Period.
Every number may go up, but it's kind of not a false number, but you know, the reality is it's.
We have lots of students that need additional services to be able to be successful in the math course. And we've taken some steps to do that, and we continuously look for ways to make that even better.
I mean, and it's one of the things we're looking at is looking at just entry preparation. Because I mean, I'm always very careful that you can't look at one instance in time from an assessment and say that that was any failure at that point in time. So are we looking at when they go in, are they ready? Is there some form of, because I mean, if you do a beginning of grade assessment of some sort, and they're not even close to the basics they need to enter a Math 1 class, it's going to be a rough road, you know, in Math 1. So I'm just trying to understand, are we looking at students before they go in to know are they ready?
Well, this year, we started our benchmark program. So we are looking at those benchmarks. We're meeting with those teachers. The 8th grade teachers are talking with the 9th grade teachers. Even the 7th grade teachers are getting in on the conversation as well. And we're all comparing benchmarks. And that's something else that we'll be doing on our vertical alignment day next Friday.
Because I'm really curious, if you go back and look at your beginning of your assessment for these students, would the assessment or did you do a midpoint assessment? You didn't do midpoint assessments in math, did you? You did do midpoint assessments in the fall? So in your midpoint assessments, Did they project you were going to exit at a 38% pass rate?
No,
Higher or lower?
slightly higher. Slightly higher.
Define slightly.
Slightly meaning maybe 10%, 10 to 15% higher.
That, I don't know that I consider it statistically significant, but anyway, but my point is, if we go in knowing, and we do a midpoint assessment, again, this is where we've got to continuously say that we use those data to do early intervention, is my point. So if you told me at the beginning of the year, your assessment was going to project 90%, and we exited at 30, well, we got a big problem. But if you go into the year saying, my EVOS and my data projects an assessment, I'm going to end at, 20, and I end at 30, that's a good sign. So it's just that constant assessment of the data at the various points, so that we take early action, not looking in the rearview mirrors.
And I
And
think
is any of the action just to stop you, sorry, sweetie, you don't have it? Because, I mean, it's a building block course, so if you're barely making it and you barely scooted out with Math 1, we are just setting them up for failure to stick them in Math 2. I mean, and that's the reality. And I'm sure a parent will argue that because nobody likes to say that their kid can't progress. But at some point, we have to stop being part of the problem of just scooting them along, especially in a course, a discipline like math. It just really sets them up just for this journey of not being successful.
So what would happen? So let's just play that out, right? So if you, one of the ones that make proficiency, you have an option to retake Math 1 in the spring. If they go through Math 1 in the spring and they still don't pass, then what do you do?
That's the thing. 3 is moving along. I mean, it's not going to be a 1 if they're a 3. That's what I'm saying. If they just skirt through, but don't have the really prerequisite skills, the depth of the skills to then start adding on harder math and Math 2. We all know as educators, they will struggle, point blank.
We just need to set those expectations early.
Reinforcing that point that the chair just mentioned, I did not take Math 1 here at News. I took it in middle school as an 8th grader. And yes, this is a very vital class because it does set up that base standard that'll carry on to both Math 3 and beyond that if you choose to do so in your additional classes. And anecdotally speaking, I know it's just an observation, I didn't have actual concrete data for it, but students that did have some challenges in it, those challenges do show in other courses, math courses. So this is definitely an important point to address, and the decisions that are being made, both with the more communication with parents and the analysis of what the instructors are actually doing in the classrooms, I feel like will help some to address that.
Okay, moving on to English 2. English 2 is a celebration in itself. Currently, we're actually beating the state average by 12.9%. So that's impressive. That's worthy of a pat on the back. Right now, based upon what we've done in the fall, we're sitting at 76.09% proficient and a 65.22% college and career ready. Biology is another celebration. Biology, we're actually beating the state average by 9.83%. So that too is impressive. Currently, for the fall, we're sitting at 79.55% at grade level standard, and we're sitting at 72.73% college and career ready.
One question, just for my clarification, you can tell I'm really interested in this stuff. Is on English, now, was that, what grade was that?
That's English 2.
Okay, that was English 2.
English 2.
And typically what grade is that?
10th.
Okay, and in biology?
Biology.
Is 10th grade?
Yeah, she has a combination. She has 9th and 10.
Okay.
We try to get most of our students into it in the 9th grade, but there are a handful of 10th graders
Yes.
that'll do
And so you said English 2. Is there an English 1 EOC 2?
No. What we're doing, though, to set ourselves up for success, in English 2 is that we restructure our curriculum for English 1 so that the bulk of the instruction is spent covering the power standards for English 2. And what I mean by power standards are those standards that comprise the bulk of the English 2 exam.
And just to clarify, the only EOC or end of course exams currently are Math 1, English 2, and Biology. The state is piloting, looking at other math exams, but as of right now, those are the only 3 that are end of course exams at the high school level.
What grade levels was the biology?
At our school, it's predominantly 9th graders, but there are a handful of 10th graders that take it as well.
Okay, and so the English was 10th and the math was 9th. Is there any, I'm just looking at the numbers because the numbers for English and biology, the stats seem to be much higher. So it's not that the students are not capable, but the number is so drastically different in math than it is in biology and English. Is there any correlation or?
Also keep in mind that there was a personnel change in Math 1 as well. So keep that in mind as well.
And there's not EOCs for any other maths other than math?
Not currently. In years past, there were many of them, but they've dwindled it down to just these 3 at this point in time. Now, we then start looking at things like the ACT and the SAT to give us other external validations for the upper grades. And then, of course, the work that we're going to do with our own graduation competencies and to develop our own internal assessments for those will give us even more information to help support our students.
As an action item from the previous board meeting, we do have the average GPAs for each of the academies. For the elementary academy, Power School only allows us to report out grades 3 through 5 because below that grade level, they're getting their U's, their unsatisfactory, and so forth. So we're only able to report out GPAs for 3 through 5. If you're looking at percentage at or above grade level, at grade level would be a 2.5. So that column represents the percentage of students that have a GPA of 2.5 or higher. For 3rd grade, it's 96%. For 4th grade, it's 99%. And for 5th grade, it is 96%.
Just so clear,
This is not based on EOGs, right?
No.
This is based on our own internal grading.
Their report cards.
Classroom grade.
Which,
Because the question was, are our classroom grades matching up with our benchmark assessment results and matching up with what we're seeing in EOGs? And so we're starting down that path of checking how these numbers cross match. So the column to the right at 96%, you said represents a 2.5, which is essentially a C+.
That's at grade level.
So what would be considered a C+ average, we're considering that to be at grade level, so we would cross-compare that number with the total number of students that had a 3, 4, or 5 on it.
so just the point I just wanted to put for the record here is, this simply is, it's not really that meaningful unless you understand what it's actually representing behind the covers, because it could be, can you spell your name? Yes, I get the check mark. So it's got to go back to whatever assessment's being done in the classroom. Okay. Yeah.
That's true.
What's difficult about this is it's sort of what you would consider a self-contained environment. So this is the overall grade for science and math and social studies and language arts all mixed into one. So it's a little bit harder to, at this level, to do a correlation between, let's say, their math performance and their math grade because it's all blended into a.
But I mean, to me, this just really emphasizes why it's going to be so important that we get our own competency-based assessment. Subject vertically aligned so we can trend against it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So another action item from the previous board meeting, in the January professional learning community meetings with our teachers, we did go over alignment to their professional development plans, their grade books, the predictor scores in EBOS, and their benchmark data. So they were taught how to make sure that all of those items are aligned. Okay. For grades 6 through 8, grade 6, they have 90%, grade 7, 94%, grade 8, 87% at or above grade level. For grades 9 through 12, 9th grade has an 83% at or above grade level. Now that number is going to be significantly lower than the other grade levels because that is the most difficult transition in the K through 12 span. because they have to adjust to a different level of rigor. So that's why that percentage is low. But what is promising about our high school is that we have a steady line of growth from that 9th grade year to that 12th grade year. That's what's most important. So grade 10, they have a 93%, grade 11, 92%, and grade 12, 100%. So when they exit News, the average senior GPA is 3.698. That's a celebration. Okay, so moving on to M class. I really want to start by defining what M class is because I feel like people have different definitions. So M class is a universal screener that measures the development of reading skills for all students in the K through 3 spectrum. And it consists of 2 major assessments for M class. The first one you'll hear the teachers refer to as DIBELS, okay? DIBELS is a measure of the early literacy skills. So this would be your phonics, okay? You'll also hear teachers refer to TRC. TRC is a measure of their reading comprehension, their fluency, how they read, their flow. So those 2 assessments, we put them together to get a composite score. M class is conducted, there are 3 windows in the year. There's a BOY, beginning of the year, and there's an MOY, which is the middle of the year. We just finished our middle of the year, and the end of the year, the last window will open in April. So we're just coming off of our middle of the year. What I did was I broke them down by grade level, and I gave you where they were, their percentage proficient at the beginning of the year, the BOY, and then I'm giving you the middle of the year proficiency. So let's start with kindergarten. The beginning of the year, kindergarten was sitting at a 68% proficiency, and the middle of the year, they fell a little bit and they went to 53%. So what we've been working on with them since we found this out, we've placed their students that did not show growth in an online software program called Imagine Learning. Our EC kids, they've had success by it, so we know that it works. So we said if our EC kids are having success by it, surely it will work for our general education students that are just struggling in certain areas to pull them up as quickly as possible before that 3rd window opens. The 1st grade class, all of the other 3 grade levels showed significant growth. If you see those teachers, give them a pat on the back. They worked very, very hard. 1st grade, we went from a 56% proficiency to an 80% proficiency. 2nd grade went from a 51% proficiency to a 75% proficiency. And our 3rd grade teachers went from an 82% to a 97% proficiency. So please, if you see them, give them a pat on the back. They work very, very hard, and we're proud of them.
How is the, for the M class, what are the, I guess, objective and subjective, how the test is applied? How is it administered, both subjective and objective? Is it?
Okay. So for the 1st window and the 2nd window, the teachers, they pull the students individually to the side, and they have various cards, and they give it to the students, and they have to read it. And all while the students are reading to them and pronouncing these vocab terms, the teachers have iPads, and they're clocking each time that the student messes up, each time they hear an irregularly, and it's point-based, and the program computes it itself and feeds it back to us. And this is something that we're mandated to do by the state for the read to achieve.
And so with
Is there
no, go ahead.
Is there any writing aspect to it?
No. And for the third part of it, the teacher themselves, they don't administer it to their students. A different teacher administers it to the students.
There is a writing element when they get farther
When they
along
get
in the
further
process.
along.
I'm looking to one of our 2nd grade teachers. After reading level G, they start introducing writing elements into the assessment. So it just depends on which part of the continuum the student's on to determine what gets presented to
How is
them.
the writing measured? You know?
You want to put it to work?
We have a 2nd grade teacher who's an expert. We're going to ask her to come to a microphone if she would at mine.
If you've never watched this, It is something to watch. It is a very tedious process.
I'll still. It's based on the standard, and it's very subjective, to be honest with you. What I could think would be a level 2 or a level 3 answer, the next teacher might not. They give us a book to look at, an exemplar, but if they're answering the standard, we can say that they pass it. I tend to be a very hard grader when I'm class writing. But, you know, it's very subjective, but there is writing. They have to learn how to write answers to the questions. They can get all the oral, they can read perfectly. They can answer all 5 oral questions perfectly. If they can't write the answer, they don't get that level, they go backwards. But it is subjective, and it varies from teacher to teacher and grade to grade.
So like at the beginning of the year and the middle of the year, is the assessment based on the expected growth? Meaning it's not assessing against the same standards at the middle of the year as the beginning of the year, or is it the same?
It's based on their level.
Okay.
So it depends on what reading level they're at. But to be on grade level for like 2nd grade, the beginning of the year, they need to be on a J.
Okay.
Middle of the year, need to be on an L. End of the year, they need to be on an N. So it's based on that, whether they're proficient or not.
And so at those grades, when you say in class, that's just for language, like reading comprehension?
Reading comprehension, written comprehension, phonics.
So there's no math assessment early in these? Do we have plans to add that?
Yes.
I don't see why we wouldn't.
M-Class stemmed out of the state requirements for students to be on grade level by the end of the 3rd grade, and they wanted to make sure they had multiple opportunities to demonstrate their proficiency. So in addition to the EOG, they provided the M-Class as another tool to help us work with students early on so that by the end of 3rd grade, we'd have sufficient data to be able to support and grow them. In addition, at the end of the year, they do allow us to use a combination of evidences from the EOG, the M-Class data, and student portfolios to make a determination as to whether or not they're on level and ready for promotion into the 4th grade.
Are we tracking the data, for example, those for students that may be like the class of 2025? Is there data being tracked all along so you can kind of measure and see from class to class if there's performance variance between different?
Yes, ma'am. So we have reports, classroom reports, we break it out, and then we break out the individual student reports. And so they're gonna have their item analysis meetings, just like we do with the benchmarks. They'll have an item analysis meeting with me next week. Every single teacher individually I will meet with next week. And we go through their data as a whole class, and then we break out the individual student data.
I think as the years go on, it would just be interesting to have, so like the children that are in kindergarten now, tracking their data all the way through to see if there are any trends between that particular class and other classes.
What we can do for you, if you'll recall last year in February about this time, I provided for you a sort of cohort proficiency trends graph that I had to put all my disclaimers on because I didn't back out students that didn't actually start in the 3rd grade, and I didn't put in, or students who left us in the middle, I left them in wherever grade they took it. And so we had started looking at those cohorts, which is part of what led us to the idea that we've got some cohorts that are slipping. It's one thing if you start at 53%, but we keep working with you and you continue to grow year over year. It's another if you start at 97% and year over year, you're slipping down to 82%. And we started to see that slide with a couple of our cohorts. But we'll get you some updated information and add the M-Class data to those proficiency reports as well.
And Dr. Silver, we have going to ask you to not speed along, but we have another major proposal to discuss as well.
This will be quick.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so AP trends. Really quick, we've made significant growth since 2015, and we're now outpacing the state and the global averages. AP exams from last school year. The only thing that stands out is psychology, and we're not offering that this year, so that will not be a part to pull us down or pull us back anyway for this particular year. All of our AP teachers, they attended training in the fall semester, and they'll have another training that they'll go to next month so that they know how to review for the test.
So I think going forward, we are going to want you to disaggregate a little bit to say what percentage are 3s, what are 4s, and what are 5s.
Okay. For the ACT results, the total composite, the average total composite for our school is a 18.5. The average total composite for the state is a 19.1. So from last year, from the previous year to the last year that we have testing data on, we've dropped 1.1%, which is not a significant drop, but it is a drop. So something that we definitely want to keep our eyes on. SAT, our average is a 1080 for the composite. And if I break that composite apart, our average math is a 535 and our average ERW is a 545. This is the last slide, and it was a recommendation from our academic committee. You'll notice that I have where we stand in reference to the UNC University System average, and this is the average score that the UNC colleges receive upon the students that they admit. And I also have our news average to the far right-hand column, and I included an NC State University average because 75% of our students apply to state. That is the most applied to schools. So I included that as well so you could see how a new student stacks up against the competition that they would be going against if they apply to NC State. And that's the end.
How far is that? That was last year's.
That's just, this is 16, 17 average.
Yes. Yes.
That's the 16,
It's based
17
upon last
average,
year's data.
but we can show the trend. They just took it this week, like actually today.
A plan came due in October.
The plan was administered in October.
That's the 10th graders.
Yes, the 10th graders. The 11th graders are sitting for
Yes.
it this week. We even have some students based on their accommodations that will be taking it over multiple days.
Just educate me, so on, they only, they can take it multiple times, right? And typically they take it in 10th and 11th grade?
The ACT is administered through the state for free to the students as a junior, but they are welcome to take it and sit for it as many times as they'd like.
They just pay for it?
They would just pay for it and find other sites that are offering it and take it that way. The SAT is completely voluntary. The state doesn't provide any mandatory requirements for that, so it's a little bit harder number for us to share because not all of our students sit for it.
I was just trying to get my head around if it's in these let's just say, for example, you have an 8th grader that sits for the ACT, that just chooses to go sit read. Does it show up in those scores? Because
No, they're separated out because they're in a cohort or pilot.
what about like a,
Now, if they go sit for it and
It'll
sign
show
up
up on
for
their
it,
transcript.
it'll show up on their transcript.
Get your score.
you know, what I was trying to get at was trying to understand the spectrum of like a student that's at 9th grade that takes an ACT, and
They would
hopefully a
be
student that
included in
takes it 11th grade that takes it at ACT. Hopefully they would be a lot more prepared and do a lot better, so it would help to understand the grade distribution of when they take it, because I mean, somebody takes it at 9th grade, but really by 11th grade, we hope they're prepared, right? So if they only take it at 9th grade once, and for whatever reason don't take it, it skews the true numbers to me, that you're preparing the student to be ready.
No, I don't know why everyone went to take it 9th grade and everything. I mean, some things you haven't even gotten the math.
Oh, I agree, that's why I was just trying to understand.
If you're looking for a comparison point between classes,
Just the grade distribution, because like for example, if your number's high, and it turns out 95% of the students are ready at 9th grade, that's a different story than if it takes them to 11th grade to be ready. I guess they're ready regardless, but it's just the timing you mentioned from 9th to 11th, it's 3 whole years, that's a long period in high school. So I'd just like to see the grade distribution.
if you look at the SAT slide, I've got the 11th grader performance versus the senior performance. Yeah, that's done for SAT.
Probably, so just to ask is just to break it up.
Gotcha.
Thank you so much. That was, the slides are sent out so you can do a deeper dive if you want to dig around. And I know Dr. Silver will be more than happy to answer any questions that we may have. And I think it's looking at the performance as everyone is increasing their scores, admissions. We just found out NC State School of Engineering, I'm going to give a prize to who can guess this. Tell me how many applications just their College of Engineering has received.
35,000.
No.
It's an NC State school, so it's got to be that.
8,000.
Tony's closest, 10,000 applications,
How many slots?
1,500 slots. So, the gentleman, the
And we
admissions
have a
rep was,
freshman in the program.
yeah, basically said, it's not that we won't have great students who are 4.0s and all those sorts of things. It's just that they're all that. And so then it just, they just have to cut down because of volume. So, and they can keep raising the ACTs and the scores because they can. They have the volume to raise it. So, lots of other schools are experiencing that too. So it's very important that we push our students because it's just getting really competitive, even for UNC schools. I mean, not even for UNC schools, but hometown schools. Well, I think these are all, Rodney was asking for me to correlate between what DPI, their assessment of us as a school with their report card they sent out and with what Janice has revealed. And some of it, you should see some alignment, some correlation, other things because they're not assessing the same groups of data or types of things. You may not immediately see it, but I think it all can put together a story. I think that's what Janice has been doing and taking what we do internally, matching it against what we're required to do through DPI and make sure that we see some connections that would seem reasonable, but then we may also see some major glitches where we're like, why is it this way internally in this way through a state, assessment. And that's what we're really trying to look at things more globally in terms of what is happening across the board with everything between the two. And remember, we've probably been very heavy on, oh, this is what DPI told us, or this is how DPI, oh, this is the EOGs, and that was like not our entire picture. So that's what we're really trying to get through is to start pulling back the covers on a lot of things that we're doing to make sure that the outcomes are authentic. That, if you look at it from various angles, that it actually still says the same thing, not just through the lens of DPI.
Yeah, and I'll just say this, and I'll stop. The reason I asked the question is because we should look at this data as an opportunity to improve, not to go beat somebody up or credit, because we want the accurate story.
And if you look at data that says we're up, 50 to 90%, but then you go back and look at data. I actually went back and looked at the school report card. I think it was 2 years ago. We were at 76. We went down to 74, and we just stayed a B by 1 point at a 70. So from an external perspective, that trend has clearly gone the wrong direction in 3 years, which should be indicative of some kind of underlying issue we need to address. So like Don said, I just want to make sure we look at the data from multiple angles so that we don't miss something. Yes, it's great to come in here and grow stories. We should celebrate and reward it, but we shouldn't shy away from the areas where the trends are going in the wrong direction either. So,
like Mr. Rodney has pointed out, anytime statistics come up, they're very easy to not see the whole picture if we just focus on specific parts. And the whole purpose of these statistics are to show us which sides we are doing well on and which we can't. One thing that I did realize on this slide of our meeting, the NC State University admissions average and the UNC system average, was which percent, I think would be valuable to know, is which percent of our students that are graduating or that we have that information for has met these standards, which percentage has, and what makes them different? What did they do different throughout their academic career here at News, or what factors have influenced them to have that, meeting those goals? So I think that'd be very valuable for our teachers and for this board to keep in mind whenever making decisions like that. And also just to know in any set thing, like in our trends, our DPI school report card, even though we are going down, which students have been meeting, which percentage of those students have been meeting that requirement, and what's also, again, in that set statistic, what makes them different. So that was my takeaway.
Okay, so we're going to move along. We had no items was that it on the plus update? Okay, thank you.
Not the backtrack, but I am.
How many of our students take the SAT? just out of curiosity, because I know there's some school systems that encourage everyone to take it, and then I know that some of them just want their high achievers to take it so they can pump up their.
Some high schools?
Yes.
We'll have to pull those numbers.
I was just curious, I mean,
We can bring it to the
if
next meeting.
100% take it,
It's not 100%.
The state doesn't say. For the ACT is the plan for the 11th grade. The plan is like a pre-ACT, and then the 11th grade they pay for.
But we'll get those numbers for you, just so you
I'm
have
just
it
curious.
for information purposes, because it is, again, part of telling the whole story.
Okay,
So let's move through our standing committee reports, and we'll start with finance.
We did meet this month, really nothing that major. You've got in front of you, we have gotten to a cadence of approving the budget every month. But you'll see on the budget, we're still tracking around $94,694.01 for end of year surplus. We'll have to revise that because there was some dependency on the raffle and the fundraising, so we'll have to, get the final numbers to that and see where we landed up. One thing that we did have is Acadia came and presented for the fiscal contract, for services they provide. They came and presented. They're proposing a 2-year at the same price. We took as an action item. We just listened to the proposal. We'll discuss that this month in Finance Committee and then bring to the board an official position from the Finance Committee. Next month, Acadia is getting a new personal point for us. They're in the process of training them, and there were a couple of discussions around tied to compensation. It's going to be discussed further in Finance Committee. We'll come to the board with an official proposal, and that would be it. So we just need an official approval of the budget. I make a motion that we approve the financial report as presented.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's passed. Thank you. And so the facilities subcommittee, was that?
I met with the staff and Jimmy Boykin earlier, just about to get it. There's been a slight delay just because of the rain and setting concrete and things of that nature, but Susan's been on top of that, sent out some photographs, I think, at 4 o'clock in the morning of concrete being poured. So whoever took that, I appreciate it. So, according to Jimmy, they should be on track. They'll start putting up the steel in the next couple of days. It'll take about 3 weeks. Yeah, and I've noticed that. And so, but they're going to be turning over the building to us the end of July. And so they know their hard deadline and with our calendar that we're going to be discussing, so they know where we are. And there shouldn't be any problem with that. That's my report.
Miss Simons, our new 8th grade math teacher, was here when they were pouring the concrete and set the pictures, and so I sent them out and said, hey, at 5 o'clock, and she sent me a private message saying that it was at 4:15, and I said, how did you know that? So we're going to talk to Miss Simons about work-life balance, but we do appreciate her getting the amazing pictures that she was able to get for us the day of the pour. It was pretty cool.
Okay, thank you very much. Personnel? No report from that committee. Academic Affairs was really our academic readout, and we'll, I believe, see the website review shortly. Okay. Resource development.
We did have the main thing we've just been focusing on for the last month has been the reverse raffle. I think it went off really, really well. I think we ended up selling a little bit north of 400 tickets.
We sold 372 tickets, and then because people earned bonuses for selling 10, there were 402 in the raffle altogether.
So we had adjusted it from a timing perspective from last year because we did get some comments from last year. People that came were really interested in getting their children in the lottery, and we had already done the lottery. But I think we probably learned that that's probably too early, because everybody's coming back from the holiday, getting refreshed back into school, and you know, you've only got like basically 3 to 4 weeks to sell the tickets. So we were a little more rushed this year. But then on the flip side of that, as far as the people there from a capacity perspective, I mean, it was a bit more comfortable. We weren't as nervous that we were going to have more people than we had chairs to sit in. So I think we're going to get together and have a holistic resource development, working with the booster club, et cetera, for next year. So we probably will look to do something like a fall event, get a lot more people involved, and then the reverse raffle with a limited, you know, targeted set of tickets in the spring and possibly push it back from a date perspective. But look, I mean, the volunteers, you know, Lori, Lori, but I'm trying to remember her name, Benji, right? Benji's is her husband's name. Yeah, but they, I mean, just the volunteers.
Lori Woodard.
Yeah, Lori, but I was thinking about her husband's name because he was there with her. But it's just, I mean, all the people that just chipped in and rallied together in short notice, from counting tickets to sending them in to being at the event. I think we ended up getting something like $10,000 worth of just donations, you know, just to be auctioned off. So it was just a great school event. I didn't really hear any complaints other than when tickets can be turned in. We'll work on that next year just to be proactive when we say they're due, because there's a lot of work that goes into preparing for the event. So you come in with 11th hour tickets and boards have been set, programs have all been set. But we'll work through those things for next year. But all in all, good event, and I think we'll raise a good bit of money for the teachers in the school.
Do you have a preliminary number or at a range, do you think?
I can give you some ballparks. We clearly sold 372 tickets, so that's $37,200 in ticket sales. We had $7,000 in sponsorships, and I believe we cleared at least $5,000 in the combined silent and exclusive auctions. So then you have to start subtracting out the prize money, the food costs, the rental costs for the facility, but all the labor was volunteer labor, so luckily there won't be any labor costs.
Yeah, I think it was our first time at doing table sponsors. I think that's something we way probably under-exported as an opportunity, because when you actually look at, if you want to do the math around the finances, and you look at basically your net profit, if you will, your net profit is on those overlay services, not on the raffle tickets, because the percentage of that is paid back out. So last year, all the things that are donated, you raise money on top, like we did a 50-50 raffle, we did a couple more, anything you add over the top, right, those things really contribute to the bottom line. So I think for next year, we should look at that. I mean, it was a lot of good stuff. There's some areas for improvement. I mean, some of the percentage of people participating is pretty low. So I think we got to look at how to get more people involved next year.
Is it lower this year from last year?
I don't.
Well,
I don't know exact numbers, but
the overall participation was lower just because of the time frame and everything else. So,
But again,
it's still a successful event.
that's right.
Still.
So we'll keep improving on it. We want
What
to
about
move.
the online versus the auction versus?
That was actually an interesting question. Before we went into the event, I think I was told that there was already like $2,400 worth of bids submitted. Now, there's no way to tell where those people that come versus people out. But we did have some people come that said they wanted to donate stuff for the online raffle. So I think we should look at decoupling that, and then some type of fall event is have more of like an online auction with things that people want to donate. Because we do continuously get people that say, well, you know, I could do this for $10 or $20. And that adds up if you talk about a lot of people. So we're going to work on probably diversifying that a little bit for next year. But overall, great event, great publicity for school. I saw people there that had come from last year. I had people call me and said, hey, keep me in mind for tickets for next year, and they don't even have kids here. So it was a good event for us.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. Especially meeting Michelle's husband. All right, thank you to everyone who volunteered and helped. It was a tremendous event. Thank you to Rodney and the committee for all their work that they did. We appreciate it greatly. Board development?
Yes, ma'am. We actually met last evening. I apologize for not having the previously approved proper committee report template filled out accurately. However, I will email that to you and Ms. Heifel, etc. And so one of the big things we did at the meeting last night was teach me about the previously approved committee report template. And so that was development of at least one of your board members there. So we went over basically the first draft with the updates and stuff, with the committee updates and some wording and spelling. There were a couple of references to statutes that we have some of the finest legal minds in Johnson County looking into to make sure they're related to 501c3 indemnity, etc. We Yeah, you know what, we might actually have a final strike-through version, basically of the proposed updates, maybe by next meeting, but I would think for sure by April. And so, yeah, we'll need to alert the secretary to make sure that's specifically announced in the 7-day advance notice for the meeting, where we're going to put that proposal on the table. We also narrowed a few training issues. I think we're all on board with governance and parliamentary procedure. I think we have some policy versus school procedure issues. I think we have bylaws and open meeting laws issues that we want to train on too. So we're prioritizing what's going to be at the retreat, what could be a training module that might occur at a regular board meeting, something like that. Identifying the materials, obviously. And I think we're pretty much all up to speed, and we're looking forward to giving you the new updated bylaws.
Great, that sounds like a lot of really good work, so I'm excited to take a look at the document. Thank you so much for all the work. We'll move into old business with, we had previously submitted, Ms. Pulliam has submitted a draft of the 2018-19 compensation plan. We had some discussion at that was January board meeting. Yes, we asked for comments to go to the Finance Committee before February 13th, 14th, so that they can take those into consideration and do a second run at the draft and address any issues and then make a recommendation. And so before us, we have the latest version. However, it does, correct me if I'm wrong, Susan, have a few edits that still were not included. So we can review those quickly, really just kind of wordsmith things, I believe. And then we'll hear from finance in terms of a recommendation, or are we still in the, we're ready for vote, so I'll ask you to just open it for any discussion or questions quickly now. Remember, we did ask that everyone did a thorough review and bring it to the Finance Committee. But if you want to make any final comments on the plan?
Just the few elements that were brought to attention were that when we start thinking about the performance bonus, that we really want to make sure every employee has access to it. Your previous editions specifically only reference teachers. So we want to make sure all staff members have the opportunity to earn that type of a bonus. And so you'll see that language updated in that portion of the plan. In addition, we thought from a phasing perspective, because that is so nuanced and different, that we would target phasing that in for the 19-20 school year and use the 18-19 school year to have conversations with staff about what it means, how they can set goals, what types of things would be used to determine whether or not you achieved your performance level, and then that way your first distribution of performance bonuses under the current proposal wouldn't be until the fall of 2020 based on the results of the 19-20 school year. But we would use the 18-19 year to talk to everybody to set their goals so they'd know what their goal was walking into the door of the 19-20 school year, so they would know what they would want to work on to try to earn that bonus. So that's a shift, that's a delay. It's a phasing, just to really, to be honest with everyone and make sure everybody can wrap their heads around how this is going to work. In addition, it gives the Finance Committee more time to make sure we know how we're going to identify the sources of funding for it and allocate and distribute those funds.
And just to be clear, there's the proposal that was originally put, which was ratified with the finance, is there's two pools of bonus money. There is one that would be phased in next year, which is a school-wide performance.
And you see that information on page 5.
Which will be based on targets that the board sets for the institution. Those targets will be set on the data that comes back in partnership with academic committee that comes out as a result of this year. You can't set targets for next year until you know your exit for this year. So that's the school-wide stuff, and then there is part of the proposal is there's an individual performance, which is a second bonus pool for high-performing individuals. It's more that individual person. That's what we just said. Rather than trying to phase both in at 1 year, we're just going to take next year to get the school-wide infrastructure in place, and then for the next year, we'll look at adding that individual performance side in there, just for clarity.
Additionally, the types of edits that were brought to us later on, like on page 3, where it talks about clarifying that retention and recruitment would be to clarify the board's intent to recruit and retain, of adding in the recruit and, is it inadvertently omitted in the first edition. Other language that was added was to, as Ms. Dixon mentioned, was to just clarify language a little bit. For example, on page 5, in talking about the administration section, in addition to further detailing how it is that we would come up with those salary bands, we would make sure the job descriptions had clear information in them to help us set those, and that anything that was being recommended would come to the finance committee before it could ever be offered to an individual employee. And I would work with the finance committee to set the sort of recruitment range before we even entered into the interview process. You'll also notice that there's an asterisk at the bottom because we don't predict having positions that would qualify as band 1 or band 3 in the coming school year. We just added that allows flexibility for possible future positions. Those types of language inserts are in here, and I can get those to you quickly, or we can make sure you see them all one at a time. In addition, on page 5, you'll notice that the school performance bonus section, the language in the sort of describing sentence of the purpose uses the word deserve. It's been recommended that we adjust that to say merit, and we're going to change that word out as merit wherever you saw deserve, just to get the language clearer. In addition, you'll notice on page 6 where the last bullet just before individual performance bonus says contingent on funding availability. It was recommended that we go ahead and say as recommended by the finance committee to the board of directors to clarify how that process would go, so that it's not just, well, I've decided I have funds, so I'm going to do it. It's the funds are available and the finance committee has made a recommendation to the full board on how to spend those funds. So that language would be added. The additions and deletions that you see in the individual performance bonus I've described to you already. And again, we would add the as recommended by the finance committee to the board of directors to the final bullet about funding. We've clarified the NCDPI legislated bonus section. Hopefully you had a chance to review that, just to really clarify that, similar to what happened to us in January, we had 8 teachers that qualified for those performance bonuses, and DPI sent it to us expressly for that purpose, per the legislation and the school board policy. So we just took the funds and distributed them as they told us and directed us to do. If, however, bonus funding is provided to us with no specific criteria, meaning here's some bonus money that we're giving to schools because you performed well, you get to decide how you want to distribute it, then we would work with the finance committee and the board to determine how to distribute those funds, and or if distribution is appropriate. If we look at page 7, it was asked that, and I agreed with, that when we're starting to talking about the extra duties pay that start on page 6 and fall over into page 7, that we add a final bullet that says a catalog of roles will be reviewed and approved annually by the board through its committees of jurisdiction. Basically, we'll make sure that the board pre-approves which roles would be eligible for extra duty pay in a budget year before distributing and assigning those funds to anyone or telling someone that they're eligible for it. We don't want to get false hopes up if those, so if we've said, all right, I'm going to talk about this team advisor or that competitive team advisor or this type of role that's been added on that's helping us with a school improvement project, whatever it might be, we'll get those roles put to you and the board will make a final approval of that, so that when we start distributing extra duty funds, it's based on that pre-approved list each year.
And I just want to be clear on the reason for that approval from the board. I've kind of heard some of this before, is it's not that it's our decision to determine which roles specifically get the performance pay. It's really more from a fiscal responsibility policy that we are able to cover. Hey, look, from a planning perspective, these roles, these budgets, these projections, so that we fiscally are responsible. This is not the board in any way, shape, or form saying we think Sally versus John should get a bonus.
I would bring forward no names, simply this role.
That's right.
That we would like to recognize these roles this year, and if the board feels that they can afford the funding as per the number of people that would be in those roles, et cetera, then we can move forward.
I do think it's important, though, that we review the job descriptions, because things that are within the job description do not become eligible for extra duty.
Right.
And that's not to say that other duties assigned cover everything, but I think there are some administrative responsibilities that teachers have just within their job description that when they're assigned that doesn't really become extra duty for them.
Correct. The intent is to recognize those that are doing work that's outside the scope of their salary job duties. continue through the document, most of the edits have been included. There was a recommendation, and agreed with the recommendation, that when we talk about the professional leave section, you'll see that on page 4 and later on in the policy section, that in order to be eligible for professional leave, just to clearly state they also must be in good standing. So just to add that language in there to say to be eligible, you must be in good standing as well as continuous enrollment in your program. So I support that inclusion. A very minor adjustment on page 8 in the service recognition section, talking about annual funding sponsorships would be needed. It currently reads in the packet that you have annual funding sponsorship will be needed to secure awards, just to put in the language sought. So we would say annual funding and sponsorships would be sought and needed to secure awards, just to indicate that we need to identify where those sources would come from.
I just, and Susan and I had this discussion because I had a concern with the employment agreement terms, basically the contracts, which according to this would be given to someone who has satisfactory or proficient, where
So that would
we
be
say
item 5 on page 7 of your packet.
yes, number 7. But then when we talk about evaluation, it's right here, employment, basically that's giving for the 2-year terms. But the 2-year terms, it would be anyone who is just at the satisfactory and proficient level, which on another, we say satisfactory proficient performance is the minimum level of performance expected at NUS, and yet you're saying they're eligible to receive a 2-year contract, which might basically just give everybody a 2-year contract. I thought that the 2-year contract was an incentive for those who are exceptional, and you know, that would pull somebody up, not for basically anybody who performs the minimum level of performance.
And the way that I intended to propose it was to recognize that there might be a space between a good worker doing a good job and the one who's going to qualify for, let's say, the individual performance bonus. And I wanted to be able to have that recognition to say that if you're doing a good job and you're aligned to the mission of the school, but perhaps you're not in the status where you're qualifying for the individual performance bonus, I could at least offer you the stability of knowing that we'd like to keep you on and give you the 2-year agreement as a way of saying we're confident in your abilities and we'd like to keep you on.
If you normalize it that everybody has a 2-year, how
Well,
does
it
that?
wouldn't, well,
I mean, if
well,
you
and
don't
to be
have.
fair, right, to be fair, if someone was in a situation where they weren't hitting satisfactory and proficient in all areas, then it's possible I would extend a 1-year agreement with a coaching plan in place because we thought perhaps it's a beginning teacher or it's someone who is showing some potential for improvement and just needs additional coaching. It would give me the space in between. And the only other reason that I wrote it the way that I did was rated at least satisfactory, proficient in all areas. There are multiple categories, and so it's quite possible someone could be accomplished or distinguished in multiple areas, but perhaps get a satisfactory rating in one area, and that might still be a person that I'd like to extend the offer of a 2-year agreement to, but I didn't want them to be knocked out because they weren't showing that in every single category.
Well, first of all, everybody doesn't have to get everything.
Right.
Somebody's just, they work,
No, what I mean
they
is-
get their contract,
Right.
and that.
This was the
Because
idea.
your language, however, satisfactory proficient performance shall not constitute any assurance to any teacher so you're already saying, if you're at that level, it gives you nothing, but then the 2-year contract says, well, actually, it does give you something. It gives you 2 years. The first part is number 5, employment agreement, which states how someone could get a 2-year contract.
Let me explain the layout just for a moment to help
Page
make it.
13.
Let me help make it make sense. Section 5 on pages 7, and it actually flows into 8, is meant to be sort of an excerpt. The policy recommendation would be on page 13. And so we do need to talk about how you want to move forward with the whole packet, because there are sections that are simply plan, and then there's recommended policies that the board is being asked to consider.
Yeah, I mean, I think,
I don't know, I just thought initially when we talked, because I was the one that suggested it, 2-year contracts was more of a carrot out there for really people who are just demonstrating,
some exception. You don't have to worry, we're gonna give you a 2-year contract. But those who, right, the language in here is just basically the minimum. I'm not sure that
Well, I guess
they should be eligible for 2 years.
my argument back would be that the language is may be considered and must at least be in these categories, which would mean that I'd have to make sure that the person is at least at that level before I consider recommending to you that they be offered a 2-year employment agreement.
But what if that's the minimum? What are they doing to earn the security of a 2-year? What special thing is it coming to the table?
So,
What other additional factors?
Yeah, I mean, what, I don't.
well, you have to actually have a little bit, you can cut it either way. I mean, you can say, working at Newsom, being a really good, solid employee.
You're not
right?
saying really good.
Is-
You're saying the minimum, that's what you're saying, that you would get it when you are, that's a minimum level of work. Not really good. Those are two different things.
Okay.
Maybe the change would be, instead of saying that the satisfactory performance is the minimum level of performance,
I just thought it was like an
Oh,
incentive.
no,
you
so
know?
I think,
But if
look,
you're saying all you have to do is the minimum.
well, no, I thought the same thing.
No, that's not the intent that was intended to be conveyed. It was simply that I know that when we get words on paper, I didn't want to put overly restrictive language in it such that if a person was distinguished and accomplished in multiple areas, but perhaps was satisfactory in one area that they were receiving coaching in, I would still be able to offer the 2-year agreement and continue keeping them on as a stable.
So I think this is really important that as we move forward, we get clarity, and when we say performance of an individual, there is areas and then there's some form of overall rating. Because it's really hard if you start saying, well, in this particular skill I was here, in this particular skill I was there, and your matrices of correlations get really complex. But from an overall, but every person is given an overall rating,
Yes.
right?
So what's above satisfactory provision?
Accomplished.
And so I think
Why
that's,
would that be the?
well, that's what I was thinking. I think we had asked this before, is when you assess performance of staff, there is proficient, accomplished, and
Distinguished.
and distinguished. So those are the 3 bands.
And then below that, there's developing, which you would sometimes see in a beginning teacher, who's, continuing to learn.
We should make sure we stay consistent with those bands. That's your tiering, right, of your performance. And then ideally, you look at some distribution, right, 80, 15, 5 or something like that. Because distinguished is a subset. Everybody's never going to be distinguished, right?
Right.
So my point was that I thought the same thing when I first read it, is you can say, are your 2 years, is that a carrot for a higher level of distinguished? At the time, there was really no discussion around an individual performance number at that time. So I can go either way, but there is a consideration that says, hey, if you're a good employee that meets the standards of being, what's the language? Satisfactory and proficient, you have an option for a 2-year contract. And then for your individual performance factor that's going to get tiered in, that's going to be for your higher level distinguished employees, because that's going to be a limited set of pool of money. That will never be available for everybody. So that was just the perspective that those 2-year contracts are really, and remembering, they still have to perform. I mean, even if you get a 2-year contract and you don't perform, contracts, there's always periods between those contracts that people perform. So go either way.
There's something missing here, because what sounds like you're saying to me is the at least satisfactory or proficient in all areas, and also exhibits some other kind of, because what we're saying is this person is doing what they're supposed to do. They're satisfactory, but they're also, exemplary in some other way beyond these 3 benchmarks. 3.
I don't mind, it just sounds like that would end up being the majority of your people, so how does that make it special and something extra that I can view and it'll easily normalize. And while you say that, there will be very few days, because what that's going to end up doing, very few days between contract year that you were able to make something happen other than a termination, because you're always in contract. Now you're in contract for for 2 years. So a non-renewal really is the length of the 2 years, so it limits you sometimes of a termination to do anything.
It's like what you were intending to do is to,
Well,
is that you wanted to have a level where they could have the performance bonus pay, but those that do not meet that standard, that you still have an opportunity.
Yeah, they're doing
Well, really, I'm looking at them
something
separately.
special,
One to
not like-
say, there is something to be said for working in a charter environment that it's a little bit more risky, right, than in a traditional districted school because of the concepts of tenure and things like that. And so since I can't give that type of stability, if I could offer up a 2-year employment agreement for someone who is doing a good job that we want to keep around, just so that they takes a little bit of that constant thing in the back of my mind, well, it is always a 1-year agreement, it's always a 1-year agreement. If they
That's
knew-
everybody. Everybody works for the state. We're all on 1-year agreements. I mean,
Sort of, they're in a continuing mode if they're in a different district. So that's all, I was just addressing that. And so my thinking was, at some point, when our teaching staff and our faculty and all of our staff gets to the point where we want them to be, it would be wonderful if they were all eligible for the 2-year renewals, because it means we finally have the right complement on hand.
but you probably almost are going to have everybody eligible. I mean, very few people will be ineligible, hopefully, or else something's going on. That you're not at least satisfactory. I would think that that's the majority of you'll have those who are accomplished and so forth, so they're automatically. But unless there's a problem, I can't see where you constantly have people who are below that and only get 1 year. So they didn't normalize this because it.
You're right. I mean, to me, it comes down to a fundamental.
Would it read
issue
better if
of-
it said the teacher or administrator was rated at accomplished or above, and at least proficient in all areas? I'm also thinking of the sort of grade thing. I can have a really high GPA and still have a D, and or whatever. I can have a qualifying element and still have not performed well in a particular area, and I don't have. I was trying to set that
That's not going to take you
forward.
out of getting a scholarship. But if you have all C's, I doubt you're getting a scholarship.
But that's why I go back to saying when we talk about, proficient, accomplished, and distinguished, it's really important that we start to understand what is the distribution of our staff so that you understand, hey, I would hope that, a pretty good majority of our staff is accomplished, and proficient. Accomplished and distinguished. It's not going to be 80%.
No, distinguished is hard to get. You gotta.
Right, but that's a good thing. It
Yeah,
should be.
no, it's a wonderful thing.
Right,
It's a wonderful
it should
thing.
be. But, I don't want to put you on the spot with a number, but,
Satisfactory.
okay. I'm curious, what would be the band of accomplished and distinguished? Is it 30%, 40%?
But they're more likely maybe to get the individual, they might be more in that category, getting the individual.
Oh, absolutely. That's what that is
But
targeted.
I did
say
wanna
that
have-
other category that's not quite there, but they're still,
Yeah.
Helping us to achieve the mission of the school.
That,
If you
a little
look,
above so I think if you did it in reverse, if you are, accomplished in 2/3 of the area, but still allow some just, you get satisfactory. Doesn't have to be, I think, all or nothing.
what determines overall accomplished? You don't have to be accomplished in every area.
Well, the way that the reporting comes out of the system, it's all just by the sections that they're evaluated on, and so then you do your own calculations, and
That's why,
completely doable,
that's why you
right,
have to
for-
leave the window that you're at
and
least.
and not everybody's evaluated on the same standards every year, depending on the cycle that they're on. Some individuals might only be evaluated on 2 standards in a given
Some
year, and some 4, depending on which stage they are in their cycle.
I think you have the gist of the spirit of what we're talking about. If you want to go back and take a stab at a redo on that category, or.
I don't, I'd rather us not kick that can if we can help it, because we got
Okay.
contract renewal discussions
Well,
that
that's
need to
okay.
start for next month, and
Well, were these intended to be in place for the 18-19 school year or for the 19-20 school year?
this is for next year.
Yeah. So that, no, she's not giving the land to your contract.
For this year? Oh, yeah. They said that would start next year.
Yeah,
Okay,
start next year.
so basically, we could approve it pending that, that section being ratified, because we don't have to decide on that, because we're not doing that for next year anyway, for 2-year contracts.
Right.
Okay, yeah, that's true. That's good. We can pull that section out and just revisit that. because the spirit of those 2 years was people going in for that year, that they would understand exiting that year, for them to qualify, what would they need to be. So that's, we can pull that section out and ratify that in the next meeting.
So I'm just clarifying in my notes, the idea would then be that we wouldn't offer those during this round of renewals. It would be offered in the spring of 19 for
We
the
don't offer it
1920
this
renewals.
round because in order,
They need to know what the
yeah, they would
conditions
need
were.
to know what their measure against
Yep.
last August
Yep.
would be fair.
No, I'm just clarifying, yeah.
And that's actually good because
Because I'd like to put that language in the title bar as well, similar to the other.
that's good.
I'd be happy to entertain a motion unless there's other, we'll have another opportunity.
Well, I guess the
for
question would be,
discussion.
do you want, that I would ask from a protocol perspective, is that when you get to page 9 and you're starting to get into the appendices, those are policy recommendations. So if you feel comfortable taking them as a slate, or if you want to talk about the plan separate from the policies, I just wanted to, as a board, let you all.
Page 9.
If you look at the appendices, Appendix A, Appendix B, Appendix A and Appendix B both contain policy recommendations that are either new policies or revisions of existing policies. The first one is in Appendix A on my packet, it's page 9.
We don't have that.
News charter school leave policies and procedures. It's highlighted in yellow. Page 9, what is it?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
So what was proposed here is to make some technical corrections, because it's no longer the State Personnel Commission, it's the Office of State Human Resources, to include the use of the word sick, just because when we're talking about the state employees retirement system, sick leave is what we're allowed to convert at the end of an employment cycle. And so just to make sure that it's clear that that's what this stands for in that system. In addition, for number 4, we used to say that it's not transferable to other traditional public schools. That's not for us to say. It's quite possible that a district out there might accept our sick leave, and we're not going to say that it can't be transferred.
So which, I look at them as.
So everything in yellow would be a change from your existing policy for the 2 items in Appendix A. When you get to Appendix B, you're being recommended to consider new policies that don't exist in the policy manual today.
So, yeah, I had looked at them as one package.
Right, and that's fine. I just wanted to make sure I was being
think we
clear
should-
that.
No, that's a good point. I think we should break them out into our approvals because, for example, our compensation policy, the compensation plan itself may not have to be revised next year, although what we would revise, if there was so adjustment needed, would actually be the salary schedule. Right? Not the plan itself, but the actual schedule.
Right.
So just, because what we don't want to get into is what we've been in the last 2 or 3 years, is every single year, it's basically a rewrite of a plan. It's not a rewrite of a plan.
And I tried to write the plan in language that would allow you to annually approve just the items that needed to be annually.
Right, so
approved, not-
if I'm looking at this right now, we should probably, the best thing would be to approve the compensation plan, approve the salary, the proposed salary schedules, right? And then it's 2 additional policies, right? The school leave policy.
The updates to the school leave policy, which carry you
It's about 4 or 5 of them.
across several
School
pages. That's all
salary,
just the leave policy. And
Performance
then
evaluations, school
1, 2,
retention,
3,
hiring.
4. There's 4 new policies recommended.
I think we should approve them individually so that then we understand if we have to come back next year and the only changes are to, if there was a proposed salary scale adjustment, we could do those separately and not have to go back through the whole plan again. The plan is.
Break that out and start with the money.
Yeah.
I hate to make more work, but I guess all these policies would have to be fit to the policy template.
Yeah.
also.
And are these all school policies or
These would
board
be board
policies?
policies. I'm trying to use the word
I mean, you got
procedure
your-
for school.
The hiring
Okay.
policy, the whole thing is there.
These would give us the overarching umbrella to bring operational recommendations to the board.
Okay.
For example, the intent of the school salary
So
administration policy.
we are, so, because you're now implementing a new hiring policy, which is different from the approved hiring policy we had before, that we would need to,
No, that stays the same. That policy hasn't changed.
what's the new NCS hiring policy?
Page 13, Bob.
I'm sorry, the procedures that were approved previously, they really are procedural. I need to have an interview panel with this. It's really descriptive language, so that would sit underneath this. That way, in the future, if we wanted to make a procedural change, I wouldn't have to
So
bring it.
that's a revision to that policy though, as opposed to a new policy. Because whether it was worded poorly and it seems more procedural, it
We
still
have
was
a hiring
voted
policy
on.
already.
We already had it and voted on a hiring policy.
I'll pull up the precise language. What it's currently titled is NCS hiring procedure. So the recruitment and hiring procedures that were prepared on May 2012 is what it's titled. So those procedures would then be the operational implementation of this policy.
Let me see what you,
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
because
proce-
it
the
was a
procedure after the policy.
policy, it
Dawn
was a
definitely
policy.
had a book going.
That was the first policy we did.
Yeah.
It should be.
Yeah, it looks like one of the pages out of your
But that's not,
binder.
right, but that's not the policy format that we put it in.
No. One, we discussed that actually too. I mean, we've got a lot of policies that already exist that aren't in the new policy format yet. And so a lot of that will just have to be inclement weather, for example, not in that. But a
What
lot
happened
of those
was
policies back then included the procedure because we had to sort of instruct on how
Here
we
you go.
wanted
At
to carry it
the
out.
bottom, there is that as the hiring, that's titled hiring policy on the bottom section of the page. Well,
That's just like one page.
Yeah, let me, is that what I sent you?
That's what's on the website. And
That's not what because I know it's on that formal template page, and it actually was a number. I think it was 1.00. We numbered the policies in order as we started approving them. So that may just been the procedures that they pulled out from that policy, because you don't want to put the actual policy on in its format on the webpage.
So if I may, maybe just to kind of speed it up for here, it's good. Maybe what I propose is the requirements for the discussions that need to happen for next year don't require these actual policies to be approved this month, correct? I mean, is there anything, what I'm saying is we can just punt those to next month and go back and get that cleared up. I don't see anything in these policies that would affect its major, the major part is the compensation plan and salary schedule, so that you can facilitate the contract discussions, is that right? Page 12. I'm just trying to separate
Yeah, the
them out.
pagination got off when we made the edits.
No. I mean, because, no. So I think that's what we should do. We should clear up the policy versus the official policy
So we
side
have
of
to
the
continue
form
work
10.
on these four, we don't have to.
That's
You
right.
can take action.
That's right, yeah. So let's just do that. Let's break that.
Well, it's four plus.
Over time, my intent was that the policy would sit as the framework on top, so that when I brought you plan items, it would be the operational implementation of the policies that you approved. But at this point,
There's 4 in Appendix B, and the entirety of Appendix A is a policy in and of itself. So that's actually 5 policies. Just for
With A, you're saying A and B.
Appendix
well,
A.
because
just
Appendix A is
before
a
the-
revision of an existing policy, and then Appendix B was including things that I thought would be new policies.
Right, Appendix A actually happens to be like 3 pages long.
So that's the one
It's
policy.
the news charter school leave policy and
Right.
procedure. And so that is also a policy that will need to be considered. In addition to the 4 that are under Appendix B.
So we need to, yeah, when you say new charter school leave policy and procedures,
They've been blended together since the beginning of the school, so that's how they sit. So if you would like to take action at this time to tease them out and separate the policy from the procedures, then do that work as well. This is how.
There's no implications of us taking another month to clean those
No.
up to the actual
I
contract
don't
discussion.
think so. I'm going to look to the title from a employment agreement perspective,
We have a-
the annual leave stuff.
I mean, what would we refer these to for, on our side to even look at?
Yeah, that's just part of the
Or make it
incentives that we want to be
a
able to offer
template.
people. Or, yeah.
Or that would be bad when you start to get a little,
Yeah, I
like,
mean, you just,
you know, everything looks different.
What I mean, we do have a proposal in here, we actually start to categorize our policies with official numbers. Let's just do that, let's hold off on the appendix and policy procedures. Just, we need a motion on the approval on the compensation plan minus the 2-year contract.
appendix A and B.
We just need a compensation plan, pages 1 through.
Minus item 5.
Oh,
I'll entertain a motion.
what, pages, what, Ronnie?
1 through 8, it's pages 1 through 8 is the compensation plan.
And then separately, you would take up the,
Minus the 2-year contract.
and then separately, you could take up appendix C.
C1 and
That's right, that's right. Well, then we would,
C1.
what I would suggest is, pages 1 through 8 are the actual plan. The actual amounts and the bands that accompany that are in appendix
C1,
C1, 2, and 3.
C2, yeah,
And then you have D and E.
3.
Yeah, so let's handle those under a separate approval, because we want to be able to do those each year without having to revisit the plan.
Okay.
Your
I make a
salary.
motion that we approve that plan that's 1 through 8.
Minus the appendices.
Minus the, right,
And
And
minus the
minus
2-year
section
contract.
yeah, minus the 2.
Second.
Any additional discussion?
Thanks for the hard work and all the input from everybody.
I agree. Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passed.
I make a
Tony?
motion, can we group appendix C1, C2, C3, and D into one?
And
Is there a D? And E. I'd like to make a motion that we approve appendix C1, make the motion we approve C1, C2, looking at it now, C3, D, down at the bottom, E, and E.
And what we'll do is we'll regroup that and officially name that as the salary schedule or actual compensation financial.
Well, it says comprehensive compensation plan.
Right, but that's the key though. We're separating the plan from the actual pay schedule. So that we can approve the pay schedule on each year without having to revisit the plan. So we'll officially name that differently, but those appendices are what.
The spirit of my
reflects the
motion is to approve C1, C2, C3, and so forth.
Second.
Additional questions, comments? All in favor?
schedule. Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed.
To clarify next steps, I'll bring back a revision for item 5 at a future session, and then the board will give guidance to staff as to how you'd like to approach the policy recommendation.
Our final agenda item, open agenda item, is the 2018-2019 calendar approval. You have a copy in your packet.
Briefly, it follows essentially the same schedule that we have this year. We're continuing with the tradition we started this year of adding asterisks to identify for teachers which day we'll have planned professional development or training activities, so they can know that those work days that don't have those asterisks there, they can use how they see fit. In addition, we squared up our annual leave days to match the state. I've already forgotten the name of it. The state calendar. We've included, I think, 2 what we call non-days, just so that we can maintain our schedule. You'll notice that the 13th of August would be this first day of school. We are maintaining that as a Monday. We've talked about that a lot, but as a charter school, we need our enrollment, and Monday is going to be our best start day. If if we start on a Wednesday or a Thursday or a Friday, we risk reducing our ADM tremendously with families waiting for Monday to come to school. So it's just not a good business decision for us. And academically, obviously, it's great for the kids to hit the ground running and really get the ball rolling with all their systems and schedules and procedures. We did look at December. We had some feedback about maybe not coming for 2 days. We have actually extended it for 3 days. We think that'll help a little bit to make that still a normal portion of a week. But we do recommend that last day, of course, the end of the quarter, continue to be an early release day. In addition, we are following our normal protocol of having the end of the school year come around May 17th. You'll notice that that's essentially 42 days per quarter. That maintains the hours that we have this year, so that still gives us around 7 to 8 additional days worth of time baked into the schedule when it comes to adverse or some weather situations or other types of emergencies that would force school cancellation.
Move to accept as presented. I move to accept as presented.
I'll second.
Comments or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed.
And just as a point of order, we are going to establish a calendar committee sometime this spring going into the summer to talk about if this continues to meet our academic needs, or if we would recommend a different layout over time. There is some wisdom to having not quite such a long summer, or to having maybe longer breaks at the end of each quarter. So we'll take all of that under advisement and bring any recommendations that come out of that committee to you for next year's calendar.
Just FYI, when is this year's graduation? What date is that?
Friday, May 18th.
Okay, thank you.
We'll get that as a calendar invite. It's a Friday.
On our graduation speaker
Okay, we still
committee.
need help.
Say that again?
We still do need help with that.
Okay, we still do need help
May
with that. We have put up Dave Neville, who will be out of town, who recommended Lee Jackson, and I'm sure Brian will outreach, as well as the woman who is the owner of the new Clayton Manufacturing, the tea. She makes the tea.
Oh, Maddie, Maddie and her.
Yes. So
Tatiana.
yes, so there was a desire from, and I'm sure Kevin would echo this, from the school, the students, that they have someone that was familiar with them. So if you have any ideas of anyone that would fit that, of course, Dave, we thought, and Lee, of course, also given his current new position. So, but he may not be interested in doing that.
Just as it may be pretty cool to invite an alumni back. Maybe Mark Thing.
Okay.
I'm just
We have-
as first graduation
That might be.
I believe he's interning with us now.
Oh, can
Oh,
you?
is he?
With Coach Browning.
So can you pass it along to Brian as the board's, thank you,
It's just a
Chris, that was a good
suggestion.
one. No, that's a good one.
I'm out of here.
Who didn't drop the mic? What guy was that?
I make a
That was
motion
brother,
to
right?
adjourn.
That's a stand.
Oh.
A motion to adjourn.
Okay, we have,
Closed session.
do we need to go, we do need to go into closed session. I need to have a motion for that.
Make a motion, we go into closed session personnel items. A second.
Okay. Thank you for your stamina, board. We do have just a few other important items.